The car wound through a gated entrance, flanked by towering pines and a wrought iron fence that stretched into the darkness. Jungkook pressed his face to the tinted window, his breath fogging the glass as Taehyung's estate came into view. It wasn't a house, it was a fortress, all sleek lines and expansive windows glowing against the night sky. The sprawling grounds, illuminated by discreet floodlights, whispered wealth in a way that made Jungkook's tiny apartment feel like a distant memory. The driver pulled up to the entrance, where a set of double doors loomed, flanked by stone columns. Jungkook's heart thudded as he stepped out, his sneakers crunching on the gravel. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and something faintly metallic, like the edge of a storm. His backpack felt embarrassingly out of place slung over his shoulder, the worn straps a stark contrast to the polished opulence around him. A woman in a tailored blazer greeted him at the door, introducing herself as Ms. Lee, Taehyung's estate manager. "Mr. Kim is waiting in the study," she said, her tone professional but not unkind. "Follow me." Jungkook trailed her through a marble-floored foyer, his eyes darting to the high ceilings, the abstract art on the walls, the chandeliers that glittered like frozen starlight. It was overwhelming, a world so far removed from his own that he felt like an intruder. The contract in his backpack weighed heavier with every step, a reminder of why he was here, and the man who held his future in his hands. The study was a warm contrast to the cold grandeur of the rest of the estate. Dark wood panels lined the walls, and a fire crackled in a stone hearth, casting flickering shadows. Taehyung stood by a bookshelf, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, his silhouette sharp against the firelight. He wore a black dress shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal toned forearms, and the casualness of it caught Jungkook off guard. For the first time, Taehyung looked almost human. "You made it," Taehyung said, his voice low and smooth, his eyes locking onto Jungkook's as he turned. "No delays." "Impressive." Jungkook shifted uncomfortably, clutching his backpack straps. "I didn't have much choice," he said, his tone sharper than he intended. "Your driver didn't exactly give me a chance to argue." Taehyung's lips twitched, that faint, almost dangerous smile flickering across his face. "Good. You're learning." He gestured to a leather armchair by the fire. "Sit." Jungkook hesitated, then obeyed, the chair swallowing him in its plush depths. The warmth of the fire did little to ease the chill in his bones, the weight of being in Taehyung's private space pressing down on him. "Why am I here?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "What's the secure location about?" Taehyung set his glass down on the desk, his movements deliberate. "Min Yoongi isn't just a nuisance. He works for my competitors, people who'd love to see me fall. The leak about the surrogacy is their first move. You're a target now, Jian." Jungkook's stomach twisted, the memory of Yoongi's cold smile in the cafe resurfacing. "A target? I'm nobody. Why would they care about me?" Taehyung stepped closer, his presence filling the room like the fire's heat. "Because you're tied to me. To my heir. That makes you a weakness they can exploit." His eyes narrowed, studying Jungkook with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "I need you safe. Controlled." Jungkook bristled, his defiance flaring despite the unease curling in his chest. "I'm not some pawn you can move around. I have a life, my mom, my brother, my job. You can't just lock me up here." Taehyung's expression darkened, but there was a flicker of something else, intrigue, maybe, beneath the steel. "You signed the contract," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "You're in my world now. And in my world, you do what I say. Jungkook stood, his hands clenched at his sides, the firelight casting shadows across his face. I signed up to help my family, not to be a prisoner. If you want me to do this, you need to trust me, not control me. The air crackled with tension, Taehyung's gaze boring into him. For a moment, Jungkook thought he'd pushed too far, that Taehyung would dismiss him or worse. But then, to his surprise, Taehyung let out a low, rumbling laugh, the sound as unexpected as it was disarming. "You're fearless, aren't you?" Taehyung said, stepping closer, close enough that Jungkook could smell the cedar of his cologne. "Or reckless?" "I haven't decided yet." Jungkook's heart pounded, his breath shallow as Taehyung's presence loomed over him. There was something magnetic in the way Taehyung looked at him, like he was seeing past the worn sweater and nervous exterior to something deeper. "Maybe I'm both," Jungkook said, his voice barely above a whisper, but he held Taehyung's gaze, refusing to back down. Taehyung tilted his head, his eyes narrowing as if trying to solve a puzzle. "Maybe you are." He paused, then stepped back, the moment breaking like a snapped thread. "You'll stay here until the leak is contained. Your family will be protected. My people are already arranging it. But you don't leave without my permission." Understood. Jungkook wanted to argue, to demand more answers, but the weight of Taehyung's words, and the unexpected promise to protect his family, silenced him. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Fine. But I want to talk to my mom and Junghyun." "Every day." Taehyung's smile returned, faint but approving. "Done." He turned to the desk, picking up his glass again, but his eyes lingered on Jungkook. "Get some rest. You'll need it." As Ms. Lee appeared to escort Jungkook to a guest room, he felt the full weight of his new reality. He was in Taehyung's estate, his world, surrounded by wealth and danger. But as he followed Ms. Lee down the hall, the memory of Taehyung's laugh, his intense gaze, sparked something reckless in him, a determination to prove he could stand in this storm, not just survive it. The morning sun filtered through the estate's tall windows, casting long shadows across the conference room where Jungkook sat, feeling like a fish out of water. The polished mahogany table stretched before him, surrounded by a half-dozen men and women in sharp suits, their voices a low hum of legal jargon and clipped efficiency. Taehyung sat at the head of the table, his posture rigid, his dark eyes scanning a stack of documents as if they held the secrets to the universe. Jungkook, in his worn sweater and jeans, felt like an imposter among them, the surrogacy contract a heavy reminder of his role in this world. Ms. Lee, the estate manager, had ushered him into the meeting after a rushed breakfast of toast and coffee, her expression unreadable as she handed him a thick fold labeled confidential. Now, a lawyer named Mr. Choi was droning on about medical protocols, confidentiality clauses, and liability waivers, his words blurring into a haze. Jungkook's fingers fidgeted with the folder's edge, his mind drifting to his mother's hospital bed and Junghyun's worried texts. He'd promised to call them today, but the schedule Ms. Lee had given him left little room for anything but Taehyung's demands. "Mr. Jian," Mr. Choi said, snapping Jungkook's attention back to the room. The lawyer's glasses glinted under the chandelier's light as he peered at him. "You understand that any breach of confidentiality could jeopardize the entire arrangement? The leak has already caused complications." Jungkook nodded, his throat dry. "I haven't told anyone," he said, his voice quieter than he intended. "I know what's at stake." Taehyung's gaze flicked to him, sharp and assessing, but he said nothing, his silence louder than any words. Jungkook felt the weight of those eyes, a mix of scrutiny and something else, something that made his pulse quicken despite the sterile setting. Mr. Choi continued, sliding a document across the table. This addendum outlines additional security measures. You'll have a driver at all times, and your communications will be monitored for your safety. Given the recent breach, Monitor Jungkook interrupted, his voice sharper than he meant. He glanced at Taehyung, who remained impassive. You mean my phone calls? My texts? Even to my family? The room went quiet, the lawyers exchanging glances. Mr. Choi cleared his throat. It's a standard precaution, Mr. Jian. The individuals behind the leaker, I don't care about standard, Jungkook said, his hands clenching the folder. My mom's sick. My brother's just a kid. They're not part of this, whatever this is. He turned to Taehyung, his defiance flaring despite the knot of fear in his chest. You said you'd protect them. Does that mean spying on them too? Taehyung leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, his gaze locking onto Jungkook's with an intensity that made the air feel thinner. It means keeping you safe, he said, his voice low and deliberate. All of you. The people targeting me don't care about your family's innocence. They'll use anything, anyone, to get what they want. Jungkook's jaw tightened, his heart pounding. And what do they want? To ruin you? Why drag me into it? Taehyung's expression didn't waver, but a muscle in his jaw twitched, a rare crack in his control. Power, he said simply. Control. My company, my legacy, it's a game to them. And you're a piece they didn't expect. The words hit Jungkook like a cold wave, a reminder of how small he was in Taehyung's world. But the way Taehyung said you're a piece didn't feel dismissive, it felt weighted, like Jungkook mattered more than he should. He held Taehyung's gaze, searching for answers in those dark eyes, but found only a storm of secrets. Mr. Choi cleared his throat again, breaking the tension. We'll need your signature on the addendum, Mr. Jian. And a commitment to follow the security protocols. Jungkook hesitated, his eyes still on Taehyung. The billionaire's silence was a challenge, daring him to push back or submit. I'll sign, Jungkook said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But I want your word, my family stays out of this. No monitoring, no games. They're all I have. Taehyung's lips curved, not quite a smile but close, a flicker of approval in his eyes. You have my word, he said, his voice low enough that it felt meant for Jungkook alone. Your family is safe. But you, he paused, his gaze sharpening. You stay close. No risks. Jungkook nodded, his throat tight, the weight of Taehyung's promise settling over him like a heavy cloak. He signed the addendum, the pen shaking slightly in his hand, and the meeting moved on, the lawyers diving back into their documents. But Jungkook's focus stayed on Taehyung, on the way his fingers drummed lightly on the table, the way his eyes flicked to him every few minutes, like he was watching for something. As the meeting ended and the lawyers filed out, Taehyung lingered, gesturing for Jungkook to stay. The room felt larger with just the two of them, the silence thick with unspoken words. Taehyung stood, crossing to the window, his back to Jungkook as he spoke. You're not what I expected, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Most people would have crumpled by now. The pressure, the threats. But you keep pushing. Jungkook stood, his hands shoved in his pockets to hide their trembling. Maybe I'm just too stubborn to quit, he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Or maybe I don't have a choice. Taehyung turned, his eyes locking onto Jungkook's, and for a moment, the distance between them seemed to shrink. You always have a choice, Jian, he said, his voice softer now, almost gentle. But you're choosing to stay. That says something. Jungkook's heart raced, the air between them charged with something he couldn't name. What does it say? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Taehyung stepped closer, his gaze intense, searching. That you're stronger than you think. He paused, then added, and I'm starting to think you might belong here after all. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Jungkook wanted to ask what he meant, to unravel the layers behind Taehyung's guarded words, but the billionaire turned away, breaking the moment. Get some rest, he said, his tone reverting to command. We're not done yet. As Jungkook left the conference room, his heart still pounding, he felt the pull of Taehyung's world stronger than ever. He was in deep, too deep to turn back. And for the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to.